So if you kind of go look at the world and where we're living in today, I never really understood what the mental dysfunction was with black people, black Americans especially, and all of the butt kissing and the bootlicking footstools that we have walking around right now. Everybody's against reparations. Everybody's against black America. And I've been searching and wondering what the hell, you know? Like, where did these Negroes come from? Where did all these traitors and these backstabbers come from? Well, I think I might have found the fucking answer to that. On my screen, it says sex forms during slavery and the effeminization of black men, right? And I'm going to start from the very, very beginning on this because I found it very, very disturbing. This one in particular. I don't know why, but this one in particular is pretty fucked up. Did you know that during slavery, the slave holders would buy male slaves to engage in forced homosexual sex acts? So the white men would buy our brothers so they could take them home and rape them. Okay, so when they tell you that homosexuality, you're born that way, blah, 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 yeah, maybe now in 2020, but your ancestral genes were raped and brutalized. But anyway, let's go ahead. We're going to scroll down on this thing. It says, these male slaves were purchased based entirely on the prerequisite of them possessing a large penis. Black men were routinely raped by their gay slave owners. So the white men bought the black men to rape them repetitively. And the white man raping the black slave was also known as breaking the buck. Well, we're going to scroll down. Let's see. It involves a strapping Negro slave who was defiant, was beaten with a whip till bloody in front of his entire slave congregation. The slave owner would cut down a tree and with the help of the overseer would then pummel the defiant buck into submission. Once the slave was worn down, the master had the other Negro slaves force him over the tree stump where his breeches would be removed and he laid fully exposed with his buttocks. He would remove his own clothing and proceed to savagely sodomize the buck in front of his wife, family, friends, and children. So what you're seeing today from black people, they were bred that way. These niggas of today, whether it's their children, their grandchildren, the grandmas, the aunts, the uncles, these niggas were bred this way. White people damn near basically grew them in a fucking tube. Let's scroll down. Let's see. So it says homosexuality and slavery. The history of black homosexuality in America. Yep, they want to tell you, oh, you were born that way. No, you were brutalized and raped. Your genes, your DNA, raped, brutalized by Europeans. In order for his plan to take effect, he would require the buck's male child to watch front row center so he too can witness his father's sexual demise and humiliation. Buck breaking was the slave master's very effective tool to keep all young black slaves from ever being defiant and taking revenge. It has also frightened the mothers and wives from ever giving consent to an uprising. So basically, they have bred you niggas male and females to not fight back, and they bred the females to teach the men not to fight back. Okay. Um it also frightened the mothers and wives from ever giving consent to an uprising. Buck breaking was so successful. Listen to this. White people were so successful in cracking most of you niggas, like the Nate Turners and the Malcolms. See, those were glitches in the system that they had to exterminate and start over. Buck breaking was so successful that it was made into a sex form, which is porn today, where a slave master could travel from plantation to plantation feeding their sadistic homosexual needs. So all of you gay ass booty tickling Negroes that's out here twerking for white folks, them white folks bred you niggas that way. Let's keep rolling. The fertility of enslaved women was examined by owners to make sure they were able to birth as many children as possible. Secretly, slave owners would impregnate enslaved women, and when the child was born and grew to an age where he could work on the fields, they would take the very same child of their own blood and make a slave out of them. As pointed out in the National Humanities Center Resource Toolbox on slaveholder sexual abuse of slaves. So to all you house Negroes, to all you swirling interracial dating footstools out there, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Even though they had children with slaves, they were still niggas. And they still put their ass in the fucking field with the rest of the niggas. Let's continue. It was common for the slave to be subordinated sexually to the master, even men with enslaved males. It was part of the enslaved man's function as an animated tool, an instrument of pleasure. So basically, the European had an obsession with raping and sexually abusing the black male slave. Let's continue. When enslaved males turned 15 years old and younger in some cases, they had their first inspection. So they had their first sexual assault from the fucking slave master. Boys who were underdeveloped had their testicles castrated and sent to the market or used on the farm. Each enslaved male was expected to get 12 females pregnant a year. So that's where all that buck dancing, bootlicking, baby daddy, baby mama shit come from. But anyway, the men were used for breeding for 5 years. One enslaved man named Bert produced more than 200 offspring, according to the slave narratives. So that's where all that butt kissing and the bootlicking and the baby mama and the baby daddy and the I'ma kill you nigga and nigga this, nigga that, I'ma kill you black man, I hate you. You niggas was bred that way. To combat the high rate of death among the enslaved, the plantation owners demanded females start having children at 13. They started making our women have children at 13. By 20, the enslaved woman would be expected to have had 4 or 5 children. As an inducement, plantation owners promised freedom for enslaved females once she bore 15 children, according to Slavery in the United States by John Simpkin. This lies. It's abuse you, torture, just nothing but European terrorism. But the problem with me right now is that you niggas was bred this way. If the enslaved woman was considered pretty, she would be bought by plantation owner and given special treatment in the house. but often subjected to horrifying cruelty by the master's wife. So, to all of you Negroes that want to run around with white women and talk about how bad the white man is, well, if you go read about the white woman, she was way worse and way more brutal than any white man. But anyway, let's see. But often subjected to horrifying cruelty by the master's wife, including, now this is the wife, the white woman, including the beheading of a child because he was the product of an enslaved master's affair. So when the white woman found out that master, that white man, laid up with that black woman, they would kill the child by cutting the fucking head off. Let's continue. Often, the plantation owner would entertain his friends by forcing the enslaved blacks to have orgies, multiple pairings, having sex in front of them, and the white men often would participate in the debauchery. So basically, you niggas of today was bred this way. All you Democrat voting, all of you buck dancing, rapping, fucking break dancing, spinning on your head ass niggas, y'all was bred that way. Yeah, I think that's the end of it. Let's see. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's the end of it. But I want to read this one little section. The word motherfucker comes from when bags were placed over the heads of buck slaves, and there were placed in rooms with women. These women would even consist of their own mothers and sisters. So the phrase motherfucker comes from the white man making black males sleep with their mothers and their sisters. Okay, the bag was placed over male slaves' heads to prevent them from seeing who they were having sex with. Can you envision the psychological damage this has done over generations? As our Majesty said, we never forget what our people have gone through. However, we must forgive and keep our hearts clean and light. Forgiveness does not mean forsaking our duty to love, protect, serve, and defend ourselves. We are anti-war, but most definitely pro-defense. Stop. You know how you always got some nigga talking about forgive. All you but now I understand you niggas was bred this way. So basically, the term motherfucker comes from the fact that the European slave master would put a bag over the Negro's head and he would have sex with his mother and sometimes even his sisters. But you Europeans and you tap dancing niggas who were bred that way want to talk about love and life and morals and humanity and being human. Yeah, okay. But let's go to another one. This is the one that I want to read right here. Let's see. Where we at? All right. Now listen to this. Especially all of you tap dancing ass niggas who was born that way. Americans did not take up breeding slaves in response to congressional action. That action was taken at the behest of slave breeders as a protectionist means to keep the price of their product up. Jefferson's home state, Virginia, was the leading producer of slaves. Slavery eventually exceeded tobacco as their leading export. Maryland was the second in slave production. So they was producing you tap dancing ass niggas. Maryland was the second in slave production, followed by several other states. So they was breeding you house niggas. Economist Richard Such did a study which found that in 1860, on farms that had at least one female slave, the ratio of women to men was 2 to 1. In Virginia, female slaves exceeded males by over 300,000. They were used to breed. Robert Lumpkin ran what is mostly referred to as a slave jail, with little recognition that he ran the nation's largest breeding farm. So they bred you niggas this way. He personally had 5 children with a slave named Mary, who he ultimately remembered in his will, while owners of the breeding farms and plantations in general fornicated at will with their property. They also utilized selective breeding. They bred you dopey ass niggas, maintaining their own large bucks and importing large male slaves for the purpose of breeding good workers for the fields. So all of these Democrats, Republicans, all you lovers of Europeans, all of you football players, basketball players, church going, you niggas was bred that way. Let's go. Let's throw down. Let's throw down. A little bit more. We ain't done with you goofy ass niggas. Black female slaves were some of the first people in the country to receive free health care. Breeders took a great interest in fertility and expected multiple births from the women or their value would be diminished. Home medical journals were produced to help with difficult births that had previously been left to slaves to deal with. The quote from the film Gone with the Wind, "I don't know nothing about birthing babies," was meant to be a thing of the past. Many films have depicted boats arriving in New Orleans, which became the largest slave market in the antebellum South. Rarely is it shown those ships originated in Richmond and Baltimore. Slaves were also shipped by railroad, packed in boxcars, or sent by stagecoach. The slave breeding farms are mostly left out of the history books except those that deny their existence. You house sellout ass niggas was bred that way. Many of the white slave owners felt they were doing their female slaves a favor when they mated with them, granting them a respite from the brutish black slaves they would otherwise be subjected to. So they told the black female slaves that the black males were brutes and savages. Okay, generally speaking, it was the house slaves that got raped the most. Generally speaking, the house niggas got raped the most. Some mothers had to protect their offspring from the master's wife. If she had reason to believe her spouse was the father, were generally aware that the situation which Some mothers had to protect their offspring from the master's wife if she had reason to believe her spouse was the father. Okay. They were generally aware of that situation which we've been led to believe was the worst case scenario. Nobody talks about the 13-year-old girl on a breeding farm, forced to bear as many children as possible, only to have them ripped away and sent down south to endure a lifetime of hardship without a mother. Whoever wrote this just wrote it all jacked up. On one breeding farm, the mother would be freed after birthing 15 children. What would she have to look forward to? So if you do the math, they said that some females, they had about 300,000 slaves, a few males. So if you had 15 kids by 300,000 females, that is 4.5 million buck dancing, boot licking niggas. So now I understand you niggas was bred this way. America barely acknowledges the breeding farms existed, let alone document their role in creating the robust economy of the early South. There are the self-evident truths mentioned in the Declaration of Independence, and that those truths so heinous they must perpetually be covered up and denied. Breeding farms fall into the second category. History books, when they even mention it, suggest slave breeding didn't begin until after the banning of the Atlantic slave trade. In truth, it began decades before the Atlantic slave trade on plantations and farms, and only because America was prepared to produce its own. So America produced its own house niggas. It did prepared to produce the slaves it needed. Did it allow the end of the importation of slaves? So once they started breeding these house niggas, once they realized that they could breed these house niggas, they stopped bringing niggas from Africa. Yeah, that's the end of that. Yeah, so basically, that's why you see so many traders. So many traders, so many shit talkers, so many niggas that ain't willing to do shit, so many niggas that's got a lot of mouth but no action, so many church going Negroes, so many tap dancing Negroes, the blind wigs, the sagging pants, the shooting at each other. You niggas was bred that way.